And once the video conference was over, he was going to turn to his secretary and say, thank goodness, we're done with that. Now, where's the letter I have to sign? Where's all the other things I'm doing? The mere fact that the people here bothered to come here means something. They're here to pay attention to you. They're here to answer your questions. And in the same way, when you have an online service, that's what you really want to create. You don't just want to put your newspaper online. You want to create a different medium. And so what you can do is things like bring in a politician, have them answer the customer's questions. This is kind of like taking the letters to the editor section of your newspaper and expanding it, making it interactive, making it real time, and putting the people you write about online. You can have the customers communicate with each other. What America Online does so effectively is it has these user chats where they talk to each other. Sometimes there's a moderator to make them focus on a topic. Sometimes there's a selected topic, but people like to go online. And their attention is much greater if they themselves are contributing to the service. Newspaper people don't like that because they like to have control. They like to edit the letters to the editor. They say, well, you know, our image is quality. We have to control what goes out there. How can we? This is like having a cocktail party online. This is not the way we do business. We edit things for quality. We need to make sure it's reliable and so forth and so on. But if you want to be successful online, you have to learn to lose a little control. The balance of power between the publisher and the readers changes. And instead of simply giving them information, you need to provide a platform for them to share information. The way you do that, the amount of editorial control you exercise, all these kinds of things are an important part of the service you provide. How many of you have a favorite local bar that you go to talk to people? Jeez, not a very lively crowd. How many of you understand the concept of a bar where other people go to drink and talk to each other? Okay, well that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. The more you get the customers to get involved, to get online, not just to read, but to contribute, to write things, to be heard, the more loyal they will be to you as customers. And the more attractive they will be to you, they will be to your advertisers. To some extent, they will pay membership fees because they want to be part of these groups and communities. It's a somewhat new concept and it's going to be hard to get them to pay, but I think they will. I still think the most important part is going to be the advertiser sponsor. There are other things you can do. You can offer serials. Stephen King, the best-selling author in the United States, has decided to start writing a book in serial form. And he's not quite sure how he's going to distribute it, but I think this is going to be another popular medium where people come out with things once a week or once a month and the customers sign up. Not so much for the content, because a month later that book could be all over the net, but for getting access to it in a timely, reliable fashion. So people will pay for subscriptions even though they won't pay just for the content itself. They're going to pay you for the delivery service, not for the content. And what Marvin has is more delivery service than the selling of content. The content may be free, it may be government information, it may be old stock quotes, but the service of getting it to the customer is what the customer will pay for. I have another nice idea which some people think is sort of disgusting and commercial, but I think Stephen King should give his books away for free as advertising for himself. Then he can charge a lot of money for giving readings, for doing performances. But another thing he could do is charge people money to have, for example, Luc Sala, $20,000 to have your name used as the hero of Stephen King's next book. What do you think?
Go for it.
The basic message for you as a service provider is that this is very people intensive. You don't just produce a newspaper once a day, put it up on a site, and leave it there until you take it down and put the next day's newspaper up. You need to have people there online managing the user chats, just the way a bartender will keep control of a bar. He'll introduce people, he'll break up fights, he'll tell somebody who's had too much to drink and has to go home. What you need is virtual bartenders on your service that will manage things. You need people interacting with your customers. They don't want to just interact with the search service. They want customer support. They want to interact with famous guests. They want to interact with people who will give them advice on their cooking problems, if it's a cooking service. The content is free. It's the personal interaction that's going to be valuable. And it's the personal interaction that's going to cost you, as publishers, a lot of money to provide. So, if content is free, how do you build up value? The notion I have is, if you like, attention capital. After reading this free content for a year, people will be more likely to pay attention to you. After posting messages to your service and getting to know the other people who are members of the same service, they will have, if you like, attention capital in their heads that is devoted to your service, attention capital that is devoted to your advertisers. Again, the thing that makes traditional publishers feel uncomfortable is that they don't own this attention capital. It's not like money. It's not like content. You can't see it. And worse than that, it's in somebody else's heads. It's not in their own. It's not the knowledge and skill of the reporters. It's the attention paid to those reporters by the consumer public. And of course, this attention capital can be negative as well as positive. You can have a bad reputation as well as a good one. But this is what you are trying to build up, and this is what your advertisers are paying you to build up on their behalf. Okay. I want to say one other thing, which has nothing to do with this information is free, but is a point that I've had a number of questions about over the last day or two, and I think is worth making. The situation in the US market is that there are internet providers on every block. If you want to put up a service on the internet, you really don't need to worry about how customers are going to get to you. They can sign up for Netcom, they can get to the internet through CompuServe, MCI, AT&T, all big telecom vendors and a lot of smaller providers are offering internet access. In Europe, the situation is different, and that creates something of a difficulty. I was talking to a large publisher yesterday, and I said, you really don't want to be in the business of providing internet access or a proprietary service. You just want to provide the content. And this publisher said, but then we'll just be another website. Again, this is a publisher that wants control. He wants to own the customers. He doesn't feel comfortable with relying on his skills at attracting attention. He wants to control the customers. The message here is you cannot do that. You cannot control those customers. They're going to be free to move around. And so you have to attract them every day. You can't sign them, I mean, you can sign them up to a month's contract or 10 months contract, but you can't keep them any other way than providing a steady stream of interactive services over the long run. In the short run, you may have to offer internet access, especially if you're in a country such as Romania or Poland or even Germany, where the environment isn't competitive enough for there to be a multiplicity of services. But you have to time this very carefully and be prepared to give up the access business when large vendors come in and it becomes very competitive and frankly not very lucrative. The big edge you have is not your content, but the people you have who have the ability to create a steady stream of content, who have the ability to attract attention, and the advertisers who trust you to do that. Okay, I think I have, what, 10 minutes left, something like that? So let's have some questions. And if you don't have any, I have some prepared, so. Marvin, thank you. I think the Atlanta Constitution should worry if the content goes beyond that website in the long run. It's advertising for the Atlanta Constitution, and it's advertising for the advertisers who pay for it to be produced. It's not that it's not inherently valuable. It is who is going to pay for it. The people who use that valuable content to attract attention are the people who are going to pay for it, not the people who give their attention to it. And I mean, this is worth arguing because it's a very subtle point, but it's real.
Well, the effect is the same, but the difference is that the websites that don't have truly a priori valuable content will not over time exist because they won't be a strong enough magnet to attract the advertisers to basically pay the publisher.
You're absolutely right.
That's an important differentiation.
And I mean, one very interesting thing is that crummy content ideally should have a harder time surviving because it doesn't attract anybody's attention and nobody's willing to produce it because advertisers want good content to attract attention. I want to give another example of advertising. How many of you are familiar with Java, the sun's language? Okay. Java is advertising. Java is advertising for Sun Microsystems. You can use it for free, but somehow you're going to associate it with Sun, and you're more likely to buy Sun computers. You're not necessarily going to buy Sun computers, just the way people who see ads for Coca-Cola aren't necessarily going to buy Coke. But it's advertising for Sun, and it's in their interest to produce this content and distribute it freely in order to attract attention for their machines.
Thank you very much.
That's not what I mean. I see that in 2 years, 5 years, that I in the morning will switch on my TV, and apart from the 200 channels, I have a little button on the left that gives me 7 pages that I have looked at over the years. I got used to it. Like, it could be the Wall Street, it could be Esther Dyson's newsletter, whatever, but 7 pages that I will look at every day. I am... I have a psychological link to those pages, the voice, whatever, you know.
Yeah, the TV announcer is another example of the same thing. You're familiar, that TV announcer or that newspaper format has attention capital in your head.
And you know what happens if they try to get rid of these guys? The whole masses of people stand up and say, we want this guy.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't get rid of it. It's very valuable.
Yeah.
It's attention capital.
But the basis of that is a better understanding of hypnotic values of color, faces, stuff like that. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Really, there is a theory that we could refer to.
You're right. Thank you.
In Atlanta, the capital of the New South, I work for a company called Cox Enterprises. It's the best company to work for in the United States. We have 4 operating subsidiaries. We have a newspaper subsidiary in which I am based. We have about 20 newspapers. It depends on how you count them. If you count the Atlanta Journal, the afternoon newspaper, as separate from the Atlanta Constitution, the morning newspaper, then we have 1 more newspaper than 20. We have a broadcasting unit as well, a very big broadcasting unit. We have 7 television stations and about 12 radio stations. We are the 3rd or 4th largest cable system operator in the United States. It depends on how you count them. And we also, interestingly enough, own the largest automobile auction company in the world, a company called Mannheim Auctions. There is absolutely no synergy between the auction company and the 3 media companies, except that as each car drives out of the auto auction yards, it is tuned to one of our radio stations. We do not believe in synergy. We think synergy is a nice word, but we haven't seen it happen ever. I'm also interim, and I would stress the interim, Chief Executive Officer of New Century Network. Because I'm interim, I have license to say whatever I like. New Century Network is a venture. Oh, first of all, I must point out that Atlanta is in the South, and as I research the internet, I have been researching the early days of the telephone because I have reached the conclusion that the internet is at least as potent and holds at least as much significance as the telephone. And I discovered that the official historian of AT&T said in 1912 that the telephone will bring peace on earth, revolutionize surgery, stamp out heathenism at home and abroad, and stamp out southern accents. I am about as south as it gets. I actually come from New Zealand. I like to say that Atlanta is in the far north, and so I can use this statement in Atlanta and not insult anybody. I want to give you some context for the remarks I'm going to make this morning. There are 34 million US households with personal computers today. 12 million of them have modems, and 7.5 million of them are connected to the internet or to commercial online services or both. The interesting point is that if you look at where things were in 1988, you'll see there's a 40% CAGR. And that clearly something fundamental and structural and very deep is happening in the consumer marketplace. I would submit that if you are not already trying to build internet services and build the expertise in order to understand how to take what you have now and migrate it to this new medium, it is almost too late for you to do so. More significantly, I think, is just a brief snapshot of who exactly is going online, who is playing in the interactive marketplace. If you look at CompuServe America Online and Prodigy in the United States today, you'll see that the age is very attractive. The household income is particularly attractive from a marketing point of view. It tends to be a well-educated audience, and Esther is quite right. It skews about as male as the newspaper industry. I want to create an approach to my presentation which is aimed to help you identify the value of what you have today and how you can translate that into the interactive marketplace by focusing my remarks on New Century Network. It's an interactive content development and distribution company. Both of those pieces are important. It's an interactive content development and distribution company. It's not an association, it's not a cooperative, it's not a consortium, it's not a cabal of big media companies designed to swallow little media companies. It's an interactive content development and distribution company. It's owned by Advance, which is the holding company for Newhouse Properties, by Cox, my own company, Gannett, Hearst, Knight Ridder, New York Times, Times Mirror, Tribune, and Washington Post. 9 of the largest media companies in the United States and indeed in the world. To give you an idea of the scope of the venture, those founding companies own over 225 daily newspapers. They reach over 25 million households every Sunday. They employ 25,000 journalists. They manage hundreds of thousands of advertising relationships at all levels of the advertising business, and they can leverage a range of diverse media. The last point is very important. The internet is a multimedia phenomenon. And within the context of multimedia, newspaper content looks flat and two-dimensional. We are in the business of creating a new medium. And therefore, we have to be able to leverage video and audio and animation and data and text. This is a tremendous creative challenge for the newspaper business. The knee-jerk reaction of the newspaper business is simply to translate into electronic distribution what they're already doing in print. The first thing I did when I became interim chief executive officer of New Century Network was to forever ban the phrase online newspaper. It is a bankrupt concept. It is highly fallacious, and it is very dangerous to think in those terms. Replicating electronically what you do in print is a bit like taking a video camera to a Broadway play and imagining you're in the business of television production. This is a new medium. You may well be asking in your relentless search for truth why it is that these 9 highly competitive and politically envious companies should get together in a venture of this kind. And you would be right to ask that question. Let me attempt to answer it. First is a collective recognition that something very fundamental is happening in the consumer marketplace. That the growth of the online interactive marketplace has such momentum that it portends great changes for media companies such as our own. PC sales to the home now surpass the sale of television sets to the home. More than 10% of US television households by the end of 1996 will be subscribing to one form or another of an online service. It's actually more than 10%. of television households. It's actually 12 million households. 14,000 consumers a day are joining online services. So something very fundamental is happening. There is a tidal wave of acclimation to online service. The agreement of New Century Network is an internet agreement, because the internet allows us to escape from the stranglehold of distribution companies. The internet is central to the development of the services that we are planning. We believe in a phenomenon which I call the 5-year phenomenon. If you go back and you look at television set penetration or cable television penetration or VCR penetration in the United States, you will find that there is some point, some magical point, where price and performance intersect, where the consumer suddenly recognizes real benefit and value, and where those particular technologies have suddenly taken off. We are witnessing the same phenomenon with regards to the internet. The 5-year phenomenon. We are about 2 years into the 5-year phenomenon. The number of connected sites doubles every 50 days. However, we are not fooled. We recognize the fundamental role of New Zealand technology, which is that bullshit is the grease upon which technology slides into the future. So we understand only too well that there is considerable hype and exaggeration and speculation about the internet. And Marvin is quite right. Much of the arteries of the internet are clogged with cholesterol. They're clogged with sites which have no redeeming value, which offer no real benefit. Many people have been fooled by the hype and have got ahead of the wave and rushed to the internet because they don't want to be left behind. Most importantly, the commercial infrastructure upon which businesses have to be based in the interactive marketplace lags considerably behind the technology. No one has yet been able to specify, to my satisfaction at least, what the precise advertising and marketing models are that are going to play in the internet marketplace. And so there will be a stall, there will be a shakeout, there will be a slowing down. You always know when there is a market shakeout about to happen because the front page of the Wall Street Journal in 3 consecutive weeks always refers to it. And very soon you will read articles in the Wall Street Journal which say that the internet is very much like the famous 500-channel interactive television universe that the very same paper was proclaiming was just around the corner this time last year. But don't be fooled. The momentum behind the internet and the evolving infrastructure of the internet is so powerful that you must learn to position yourselves relative to it. The third reason for these 9 companies coming together and trying to exercise a single vision with regards to the online interactive marketplace, and specifically was the internet, was the recognition that independently they did not have sufficient scale to win in the marketplace. This time next year in the United States, America Online will have 10 million subscribers. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution is a major daily newspaper in the United States. Every day it reaches 460,000 households, and on Sundays it reaches 600,000 households. But there is no way even a newspaper of that scale can garner mind share and usage share, hourly usage of its interactive brands in a way that positions it strongly in its own marketplace against a national brand like America Online. Now you can argue about the accounting methods of America Online, and you can argue about, the way, the degree to which America Online can continue to develop. And I don't mean to focus my competitive remarks on America Online. But that company will be at a level of 10 million subscribers this time next year. And that is a very difficult phenomenon for any single media company to contend with. The question is, for us, How can an individual newspaper develop and promote content brands which win the battle for share? And at the same time, how can we develop a distribution channel? Because ownership of the distribution channel gives us access to the full revenue generated by advertising. And if we surrender that, we lose access to that advertising. That was the question that we were asking as New Century Network developed. And that's a very important reason for this venture occurring. It's humbling to recognize that on your own you can't develop the businesses of scale that you need to develop. Of course, there's also a need to preserve a direct relationship with customers and thus a need to control the revenue stream. Several of the companies involved in the New Century Network venture had entered into business arrangements with companies like America Online. They were very good business arrangements in that they enabled those newspaper companies to begin to grapple with the creative challenges of building new interactive media. But they were very bad business deals because their brands were reduced to nothing more than an icon on somebody else's menu. They were several clicks away, several decks down in somebody else's service. The San Jose Mercury News delivered to you by America Online. I would submit to you that enabling your brand to be marginalized in that way has very little to do with a desire for control. I would submit to you that not allowing your brands to be marginalized in that way is particularly important, and that the internet offers you a unique opportunity to do that, to protect the primacy of your own brand in your own marketplace. So those kinds of strategic recognitions led to the formation by those 9 big media companies of New Century Network. And I want to tell you that we have 3 phases of concurrent development upon which we are embarking. The facilitation phase is the one that many people focus on, but it's in many ways the least important. We build the railroad tracks. We get newspaper affiliates up and running on the internet, on common internet open technology standards that are calibrated in such a way that subscribers to any single one of those services can move easily to another. See, a big challenge of the internet is the marketing challenge of organizing it. You have to organize the internet. This is our attempt to organize the internet for our own purposes while trying to be respectful of the openness that has got the internet to the point where it has today. So we develop technology requirements and we build a backbone so that people who are subscribing to, say, Access Atlanta, an online brand developed by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, can, by dint of that subscription, be advantaged in terms of price and security and ease of travel, cross our internet backbone and visit the Chicago Tribune online service and look at how badly the Chicago Cubs did last night. And they can travel to the San Jose Mercury News and look at high-tech employment possibilities in Silicon Valley. Then they can travel to the San Diego Union Tribune to witness in multimedia glory the continuing riotous celebrations in the streets owing to New Zealand's historic America's Cup victory. And then they can come back to Atlanta, to the brand they know. The possibility of that interconnection can be marketed and promoted as an added value offering from Access Atlanta. Thirdly, third phase of development, which has already begun, is that we want to get into the business of building specialty content brands that do not simply replicate the content that we have today, but take that content and reinvigorate it with video and audio, and then make it available on the internet. But most importantly, promote its availability on the internet by leveraging the fact that those 225 newspapers have deep, embedded, trusted relationships in their markets and can direct eyeballs both out of their core media and out of their new media to that specialty content. Specialty and premium content is very